Good afternoon, everyone. This is Bob Pompiani, and welcome to a Tomlin Tuesday. It's Mike Tomlin's press conference as the Steelers get set to take on the Seattle Seahawks, coming off a win over Denver 27-19. Some good performances in that game, of course. I'm sure Coach T will talk about Najee Harris, the offensive line, but there was a costly injury or two, specifically one to Juju Smith-Schuster, and I'm sure he's going to update that injury as we begin. Seattle comes in here without their quarterback, Russell Wilson. He's out 4 to 8 weeks, so they got some issues there. But Geno Smith is a guy who's been around this league for a while at 31 years of age, and he will be the quarterback the Steelers oppose this coming Sunday night in the first primetime game for the Steelers. It's also alumni weekend here in Pittsburgh. A lot of guys coming back, and many of them will get their rings on Sunday night as well. So the Steelers come into this one 27-19 winners over Denver. Some big efforts in that game. My favorite was James Pierre running down Javonte Williams to save a touchdown and resulting in a 4-point save right there. Mike Tomlin is ready to go, so let's hear from the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers as they get set for Seattle.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis of what transpired on Sunday and perspective relative to that. To me, Sunday's performance is about growth and development, things that we've been working on, and them coming together and coming to fruition within the stadium. We've been working hard at developing cohesion in our offensive front, and it manifesting itself in terms of efficient run game. We saw signs of that in Green Bay. I thought we took another step this past Sunday, and we're able to do some things in the running game that are our desired personality. We need to continue to grow in those areas, specifically just the cohesion, the cohesion-based things. Eliminating negativity in the run game that's produced by unblocked people for a variety of reasons. To minimize penalties in that area of play. Penalties are drive killers. Penalties put you behind the sticks and make you one-dimensional. All are things that we've had issues with through the early portions of the season. So to take a step in that area, to be able to have a solid performance in that area is significant. And now, how do we springboard that into consistency and to get better in that area? We still need to minimize our penalties. We're still, in my opinion, too highly penalized in that area or portion of our group. And it's very technical in nature. We just got to continue to develop the techniques that allow us to play clean and to block effectively and minimize that component of play. We had a couple pre-snap penalties, false start penalties, and really that's unacceptable at home, and that puts us behind the sticks. And so we're really just focusing on who we are and what we're doing in the manner and quality in which we're doing it. I still think we're developing an understanding in terms of the division of labor and who does what well and how we can highlight certain people and circumstances. I think that's been challenged because we've missed people here and there throughout the process. But that's a component of it. It's issues for everyone, so we're not complaining about that, but it is been one of the variables that's made the process challenging. The availability of people or the lack of availability of people in terms of slowing that progress. On the defensive side of the ball, I thought it was significant that we were able to stand up and hold them to a field goal when we got put on a short field. I also thought it was significant that we were able to hold them to a field goal after James Pierre ran down Williams on the breakout run. And so our ability to stand up and defend the short field and fight for those blades of grass on the short field in an effort to preserve those 4-point swings, I thought was and is significant. I still think we're working to find our mix there, particularly situationally, possession downs in terms of how we divide the labor. That's been strained because of player availability or lack thereof. Joe Hayden has missed some work. Cam Sutton has missed some work. Devin Bush has missed some work. We've worked with a variety of people in our rush group. Both outside linebackers have missed some time, and we've struggled with people playing opposite of Cam Hayward inside. And so I think we're getting a sense of an understanding of our depth. Our depth is gaining in-game, in-stadium experience. We're finding a way to win those possession downs and play with some of those guys, and that's not going to do anything but benefit us as we move forward. I think those are the significant lessons learned from our last performance, and it is our hope that we build upon that as we get ready for this opportunity on Sunday night versus Seattle. And that's something that we take very seriously, having an opportunity to play this game and to play this game on prime time in front of our peers and and an international audience is something that we covet and respect. And so we got a big week ahead of us from a preparation standpoint. Before I get into that in Seattle, I'll talk about some injury things. In game, as you guys know, Juju sustained a shoulder injury that will require surgery tomorrow. And so he'll be placed on IR, I'm sure, at some point. Sorry for Juju. I'm appreciative of him, the spirit that he brings, the effort that he brings, the quality of his play. But that's what makes football the ultimate team game. We'll be calling on a number of people to bridge the gap in the short and the long term in terms of bringing what he provides. When you're talking about losing a guy like Juju and how he functions within the framework of our offense, usually you're talking about multiple people assuming the role in some form or fashion, particularly in the short term. It's really the same discussion that we were having last week when Cam Sutton missed some work and the things that he does, particularly in sub-package football for us on defense. And that's usually a number of people for filling the role because they have other responsibilities, special teams and so forth. And so we'll work at that division of labor and gain an understanding of who does what well and position those guys to be positive contributors to our efforts so we get a Juju-like production day from whoever is occupying that space. Devin Bush had a groin injury. He'll be evaluated, and his practice availability and the quality of that practice participation will be our guide in terms of his availability. And the same thing could be said for guys that have recently missed time but are probably in position to be under strong consideration for play. Cam Sutton, James Washington, Carlos Davis all fall into that category. All will be working in some capacity, I imagine, tomorrow, and then we'll progress hopefully in a positive way toward game time. Some of the IR guys that have been working, guys like Zach Banner, guys like Anthony McFarland, it's good to have them back out there. We're still within that 21-day window on those guys. And so we'll evaluate the quality of their play and make a determination whether or not they can be positive contributors to our effort. If it's appropriate, if it's an opportunity there, then we'll study those possibilities when we get into the week. But as we sit here right now, we're really just focused on putting together a good plan, seeing who's available for work tomorrow, and making sure that we position ourselves for good play on Sunday night by having a good practice tomorrow. Now on to Seattle. First looking at their offense, obviously they're playing without Russell Wilson, and they probably have a better understanding of the impact of that than I do. But I'll say this, Geno is no pup, man. He's been in this league for an extended period of time now. He's got experience in this system. He's been in Seattle a number of years. He was with the coordinator for the Chargers before he and the coordinator went to Seattle. And so he's got some understanding about how that system of football is built. He's 31 years old. He's been in this league now a long time. I'd imagine he's in place there because he gives them an opportunity to function in a very similar manner, at least schematically in terms of their personality. And so that's what we're anticipating. We got a lot of respect for Geno. We've played against him in the past. We got a lot of respect for their system of football and how they spread the ball around to a bunch of dangerous eligibles. First and foremost, man, we have to, try to work to minimize the impact of Metcalf and Lockett. And I mentioned both guys because, both guys are big-time significant. Both guys get yards in chunks, 15 yards per catch type guys, splash playmakers, the guys that can really change an in-stadium climate in an instant. Got a lot of respect for those guys. We've competed against those guys in the past, and it doesn't lessen the challenge in terms of trying to deal with them. Couple that with the fact that they have a sound running game with two quality backs in Carson and Collins. We're familiar with both. We've seen Carson before in the past. 2019, he started against us and has been a quality runner for them for several years now. And Collins, former Raven, we've seen him before as well. Much like last week, man, they got two really capable runners, and they're going to feed both to you. And so we can't erode as the game wears on. We got to be sound and stout against the run, early, middle, and late, if we want this game to unfold in the manner in which we desire it to. On the defensive side of the ball, looking at them, they got some dynamic players. Man, that strong safety, man, we got our hands full in terms of trying to minimize him. not only in terms of in the box, in terms of what he does in the run game, but he's just an outstanding blitzer, man. I spent some time this summer delving back into 2020 tape and just looking at some opponents and looking at some players. And, man, this guy is the most dynamic secondary blitzer in football. I mean, the rate in which he gets to the quarterback, that is something to be respected. He gets on backs. He consistently beats backs in the blitz game in the ways that linebackers beat backs. Our backs are going to be challenged from a pickup standpoint. Our wideouts are going to be challenged on the perimeter running plays, trying to, minimize his impact in that area. Bobby Wagner, their man in the middle, all situations linebacker, has been that for them for over a decade. Got a lot of respect for his body of work and his business, his detail, his communication, his leadership. It's all very evident when you watch their tape, man. So much of it goes through him. He provides great fluidity for those guys. Very rarely are they collectively out of place, and I think it starts with him. He's familiarizing himself with some newer people. He doesn't have KJ Wright playing beside him anymore, but he has Brooks and a talent who's a talented young linebacker out of Texas Tech. We really liked him when he came out in the draft. Big people up front. They play a lot of people. Al Woods is a familiar face. Man, we've dealt with Al over the years. Al obviously got his start here a number of years ago. Man, he's dynamic, and particularly against the run, he's a load. He's something to deal with. Carlos Dunlap as well, former AFC North foe, doing similar things out there, wreaking havoc, man, being who he is, being long and disruptive. But more than what they're capable of and the people that they work with, like I mentioned at the outset, when talking about them and dealing with them, it's about things that we do. We got to work to take care and preserve the ball. Pete Carroll defenses over the years have been historically good at hunting the ball and getting the ball. Ball possession is big for us. But we're just excited in general about getting back in the stadium, playing in prime time. But that excitement's only going to take us so far. Preparation needs to be a component of it. And so we got a big week ahead of us. I said enough. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, even though Juju's only 24, he's still the elder statesman in the locker room among that receiving group. How do you replace that type of person in that group?
We're not trying to replace Juju. We're just trying to provide additional opportunity for those that get expanded roles. And many of those guys we have a lot of confidence in. James Washington, you guys ask a lot about James Washington during the course of team development and his role and things of that nature. Man, we got a lot of confidence in James. And so however unfortunate the injury is for Juju, it does provide an opportunity for James to expand his role and to do some things that we all know he's capable of doing. It provides an opportunity for Ray McLeod to expand his role and continue to develop as a receiver and get more opportunities in that space. Ray carved out a niche for himself as a return man, but that's his day job, and he's been working to develop as a receiver and has done a great job of doing so. And so, these opportunities are big opportunities for men like those two that I mentioned. It's big opportunities for a guy like Cody White, who's been fighting and scrapping for an opportunity to lay a foundation for what hopes to be a good career for him. And he's had a window because of lack of availability of others over the course of the last several weeks. Chase Claypool's lack of availability gave him an opportunity. James Washington's lack of availability gave him an opportunity. And so now Juju's lack of availability gives him an opportunity. And so, my heart aches for Juju, but I'm equally as excited for guys like the guys that I mentioned, and I know their preparedness. I know their desire to be positive contributors to our efforts. And so I'm excited about watching them first prepare, but then ultimately perform. And they know that quality performance is going to be required.
Mike, Zach Banner was telling us last week that he was ready. And you just talked about the cohesion that you saw with your five guys on Sunday. How does, what's the line there between wanting, Zach might be ready to play, but you're finally seeing those five guys that you like playing the way that you want them to play?
Ready is not a problem. I'm not going to make a negative out of him perceiving that he's ready or him being ready. There's nothing wrong with having more than 5 capable, ready men. Those are the type of problems that you want to have, and I look forward to the day that we're managing that.
Mike, you over here. You mentioned all the ways that the receiver room can step up to fill Juju's void on the field. Who steps up off the field? The energy that Juju brings, some of those intangibles to the room, the leadership. Who among that group can fill that?
That's team. That's easy. Guys do that just by simply being themselves. The same way that Juju developed that persona and that ability to be that for us by simply being himself. I'm not going to ask anybody to be anything other than themselves, and it happens organically.
Mike in the back, I got a housekeeping question first and then an O-line question. When does a decision have to be made regarding Banner and activating?
21 days from the day of activation. I don't have the exact date.
Okay. You guys, I think you talked about it, I know Ben talked about it, challenging the offensive line as a group, and yet they're all individuals, and some guys need to be treated differently. How do you go about challenging an offensive line group?
The same way that you go about challenging a unit or a secondary group or a football team for that matter. I think that's the art and the science of what we do vocationally as coaches. You got to have intimate relationships where the individual man knows that you're challenging him or holding him accountable or encouraging him or congratulating him. But at the same time, you have to have that same approach and intimacy with a collection of men. And so that's just what we do as coaches.
To sort of follow on what Will was asking, in some position groups, you just play the best player, and that works. In the offensive line, for the first time on Sunday, you had all 5 of your starters play 100% of the snaps. Ben had more time than he's ever had. Obviously, you spoke of your run game. How, when you're doing that, do you position where the cohesion and the chemistry matters? How do you weigh that against who are the 5 best athletes?
There's no cookie-cutter answer to the question that you asked or he asked. I'm not going to make it a negative. To have more than 5 capable men who are ready and capable of playing winning football for us is not a negative. It's just not. We'll manage it. It'll be a pleasure to manage, to be quite honest with you. I'd rather have 6 than to have 4. And so we're excited about getting him back in the fold and having that be a viable option for us, whatever that may mean in terms of management of the group individually and collectively.
Mike, aside from the obvious need to stop the losing streak, get a victory to start your first of hopefully stacking wins, was there sort of an importance when it comes to a buy-in, both from you guys as a coaching staff to see the players coming along in the way that they did so you can trust them further, and similarly for the players in the game plan itself?
I know what you mean, but that wasn't and is not our focus. I proceed with the assumption that there is buy-in because that's what we build culturally, and those are our values. More than anything, we're just working week to week to secure victory.
Mike, there's been an uptick around the league of teams going for it on 4th down. You've seen a lot with the Chargers. Do you see that becoming more of a trend? And the second part of that is, how much do you maybe use your analytics team to help you guys, your coaching staff, with little things like that?
Analytics is a tool, but it's not the tool because all circumstances are different. There's an uptick in 4th down attempts in the National Football League because there's probably more quarterback mobility than ever before in the National Football League. And so what analytics may tell us as it pertains to that might speak to that quarterback mobility, but that's not a component of play for us. And so we don't make decisions exclusively based on analytics. It's simply a tool. We acknowledge that more people are going for it than ever before. Quarterback mobility has a lot to do with it. But, obviously that's not how we're built.
Mike, you've discussed with the offensive line the time, cohesion needed, the steps needed to take forward with that group. How about defensive line? Similar process where they need time, and how do you feel their progression is coming?
It's not a cohesion thing based on the newness of the collection of people. It's a cohesion thing because of the moving parts, because of lack of availability. And so the people that are playing are been here. They're just getting increased opportunities. Their roles are emerging. And so I don't want to put it in the same discussion because it's a little bit different from that perspective. We're not getting to know them We're just getting to know them as guys that get an increased opportunity and roles. Guys like Hank, for example, that had a nice play or two for us in this past game. And so that's our focus. It's about the development of depth and feeling comfortable with the quality of player, having a certain anticipation with the quality of play of some of the backups in that space. That's probably the discussion there.
If we use passer rating as a metric, Ben's highest passer rating right now is when targeting Deontay Johnson. Can you talk a little bit about the growth you've seen out of him, the work that he's put in, and why you think that pair is working well together?
Who are you talking about, Ben or Deontay?
Deontay.
Oh, Deontay is just going through the natural maturation process that we expect guys to go through. He's no longer a rookie. He's been in some circumstances and situations. He's understanding the game better. I think it's allowing him to play faster. He's finding his rhythm as a professional. I just had a conversation with him in there. He was laying on the training table getting his body taken care of. I see him every Tuesday before I come in here and visit with you all. I think he's finding the rhythm in his professional preparation process, whether it's formally like in practice settings or whether it's informally like what he does with a Tuesday. And so it's reasonable to expect guys to grow and make more plays and develop better consistency as they find a steadiness in life. And I think that's just where he is.
Mike, James Washington's kind of an even-keeled guy. He's kind of in a crowded position room looking for a niche and a role and everything. Have you had conversations with him about that and searching for his opportunity and to stand out?
Not specifically, and particularly not specifically of late. We've been talking about what it is we need to do to win games and players' individual roles in it. But obviously over the course of a 12-month calendar, we do have an opportunity to sit down and talk about the trajectory of his career and his goals and desires, and that's something that we do quite often.
Mike, quickly, was Devin Bush's groin injury a re-aggravation of what he was dealing with before or something new?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Does the number of soft tissue injuries you've had cause enough concern to cause a reevaluation of processes?
Not at this juncture, no.
Mike, over here. You've worked with John Gruden before, and you talked about your relationship earlier this season. The emails that came out over the last couple days and his resignation last night, what's your reaction to that?
I'm just saddened by it. I'm saddened for the Raiders organization. I'm saddened for the people that were offended by it. I'm saddened for Coach Gruden. It's a sad commentary, and that's really the only opinion that I care to share at this juncture.
If I could go back to the receivers for a little bit, I once asked Kevin Colbert about the way y'all draft receivers, and he said Ben has a lot to do with how good these guys are. You've watched him build rapport with guys from Hines Ward to Emmanuel Sanders to AB to Deontay now. Is there any connective tissue? Are all of these relationships totally different? Is there anything that you see in all of that you can share?
Not anything to wrap a neat bow around it. I think anytime you're working to have success in the passing game, it's steeped in cohesion and understanding between passer and receiver, no matter who it is. And that's born out of, first and foremost, individual talents from all parties involved, and secondly, collective work. And, we spend a lot of time together, those guys do, formally and informally. Ben has been here a long time, and over the course of that time, he's seen receivers come and go, and he's taken a personal responsibility to be a component of their growth and development. And I just think it is a very natural thing. I think you could point to those discussions regarding any well-tenured quarterback. You could say the same thing about Aaron Rodgers, from Donald Driver to 17, who he's working with now, and et cetera, et cetera. I think say the same thing about Drew Brees when he was playing in New Orleans for a length of time. I think that's what the elite quarterback does, man. He develops a rapport and a relationship and an understanding with those that he targets. And when you're on a job for the length of years that Ben has, and it's going to be a collection of guys that you can point to.
Does one remind you of a previous one, though, or do they all seem distinct?
I don't even digest it in that way. I'm not looking at it in that way, to be quite honest with you. we look at general skill sets. We want somebody to stretch the field. Okay, Mike Wallace was a guy that stretched the field. Martavis Bryant was a guy that stretches the field. Chase Claypool is a guy that stretches the field. We like route runners, Santonio is a route runner. Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders are route runners. Deontay Johnson is a route runner. But nothing any more detailed in that global perspective, than I just gave you.
Mike, Najee mentioned to us after the game that the cramps that he had at the end of the game were something that he dealt with at Alabama. Were you guys aware of that when you were evaluating him? And is there any way to sort of manage that other than just hope that it doesn't happen with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter?
We were aware of it, and it starts with hydration. We got professionals, man. He's a professional. We have certified athletic trainers and nutritionists and so forth. We're continually managing that. We just got to do it a little bit better. But I will acknowledge that he had a little bit more work in that game than he had in others, and so we'll continue to adjust and find our footing there, but it's really no big deal, to be quite honest with you.
Just to follow up to something you had answered when Jerry asked the initial question about replacing Juju, and you talked about the number of different bodies that will go into that. Does that extend beyond just wide receivers? I mean, might that extend to a little bit more to tight end? Maybe Najee going out in patterns from being split out on occasion?
Certainly.
Mike, is the challenge with a young offensive line this week, okay, they put something on tape last week, kind of driving that point home this week that they have to do it again?
I think that was the discussion we were having a week ago. I know you guys didn't believe me, but, I felt that way a week ago. And so last week was kind of that discussion. And so this week is a continuation of last week's discussion.
Mike, when it comes to that division of labor you're talking about on defense, you guys had the challenge of replacing Cam Sutton, going into the game, but then, losing Devin Bush in the middle of it. How have you evaluated guys like Trey Nord and other guys that are filling in the middle of the defense to make up for that?
First of all, man, we're appreciative of their efforts and their willingness to, compete and play and expand their roles, and particularly for the young guys, the guys that hadn't had an opportunity to be around here a long time and really get that component of it and understand what those opportunities are for them. Young guys like Trey Norwood who are proving that it's not too big for them, it's exciting because, they have a lot of growth in front of them. But they're doing some good things now. They're doing some positive things now to help secure victory. Carl Joseph is new to us. Arthur Millette is new to us. And so those are exciting things. We're appreciative of their efforts. We realize that usually it's a multiple-man job when you're talking about dealing with new and young people, and that's why we spread the responsibilities around. But at the same time, it is really encouraging.
Mike, last week was the first game, I believe, since 2019 that you had both a 100-yard rusher and a 100-yard receiver in the same game, knowing that game plans kind of dictate a little bit differences in those types of things. But how important is that type of balance, and how do you kind of look to build on that as you kind of progress here through the next couple weeks?
I've been having the conversations in roundabout ways with you guys in this setting and previous settings. It's about eliminating negativity in our run game so we don't get behind the chains. So it's about not having unblocked people schematically and gaining cohesion to make sure that we can block any look, and we're getting better there, improving in terms of our individual techniques, keeping our hands inside, being able to work and finish, but also doing it in a legal manner. And so we're developing skills associated with that day to day with our young guys, particularly in our individual work, and the runner getting used to NFL football. I think staying on schedule is a big component of it. It keeps drives alive. It allows you to ring the scoreboard up. It allows the game to remain within striking distance or puts you ahead, and so you can thoughtfully maintain that balance that you look for not only in play selection but in personality. It all kind of runs together. We've been continually talking about it. It's not like it's some magical formula got met last week. It's not. I mean, the result of the game was the result of the game. We've been focused on those variables for some time, and we've identified those variables for some time. We've been working in those areas. Hopefully the fruit of that labor continues to show itself.
Mike, James Washington probably wasn't the first player you've ever had on a team that may have requested a trade. He probably won't be your last. But how do you get a player like that when they have some off-season concerns back to where he is in the fold now, and you're
I don't know that I ever acknowledged that he requested a trade.
Okay. He is obviously back in the fold now. Well, did you ever have any conversations with him, whether he did or not, and how did you get him back to where he is now?
No, I did not. Man, James is a professional and a quality dude and teammate. He's always ready. He's always working. He's low to no maintenance. I just got a lot of respect for him as a player and as a man.
Mike, will you look outside to find get an extra wide receiver, whether a veteran with experience or just a regular tryout for a guy? Are you planning to for Juju?
Obviously, we're going to need some depth there, and I'm sure that we'll have those discussions. Who or what that looks like depends on what the field looks like. Oftentimes, we're looking for the best available professional as opposed to a guy with a particular skill set. And so those discussions will be had. We'll go through that process, and you guys will know when we come to a decision. All right. Thanks.
That does it from Mike Tomlin. Today, we're back to analyze a lot of what he had to say. Bob Pompier, along with Missy Matthews. And the word he kept using, and it's a word that throughout a course of a long season you're going to hear, is opportunity. Now that Juju Smith-Schuster's out, opportunity for others.
And even, going back to the win against the Denver Broncos, there was Cam Sutton and James Washington who were out with groin injuries. We saw some Cody White, Ray McLeod. Obviously, Deontay Johnson played a lot more once Juju went out. So it is going to continue. There's still other injuries this week that they're going to be dealing with. And they are taking steps in the right direction in some things. But as everybody said, not a finished product.
Opportunity not just for wide receivers, but other positions also. And guys need to step up. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about Seattle coming in here on Sunday night, the first primetime game for the Steelers, all next, right here as we continue our breakdown of the Mike Tomlin press conference on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field is everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Yeah, we had, we repped that throughout the season, fall camp especially. It's actually a new play. I'm pretty sure that Coach Canada put in, and we moved a couple people around, put them in the right spots, and I think I knew Ben was coming to me, and Ben knew he was coming to me as well. So just had to go make a play.
Did you have a pretty good idea he'd have to take a shot to pull that play off?
For that play, yeah. I mean, he put it in a good spot, and sometimes that's the bad things that happen with touchdowns, you take a little shot, but it wasn't too bad.
Washington out and Juju hurt early. How important was it for you to get a game like this under your belt today, and how about the rest of your season?
Yeah, definitely. We were a little thin out there, so making sure I was in there and trying to help out all the receivers. Deontay going basically every snap, trying to get some reps off his legs. He did a really good job today. So yeah, it's important to. If you can go, make sure you go.
The catch pass you caught for the big gain across the middle, cutting across like that, how good did that feel? Because there hasn't been a lot of that this season.
Yeah, we talked about big chunk plays, so to be able to get that chunk play, it eliminates a lot of execution needed. That's what Coach Tomlin talked about earlier in the week. We did that a lot throughout these games, chunk plays, and that makes everyone's job a lot easier.
There's been a lot of discussion about the offensive line. Do you speak the way they've played and the improvement that they've made here over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think the improvement was seen first in Green Bay with the run game, first down run game, and then it carried over to this game. The ability to get the running game going opens up the pass game, and I think we saw both sides of that today. So super excited for the linemen making that step forward.
Towel is twirling, and This atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
In game, as you guys know, Juju sustained a shoulder injury that will require surgery tomorrow, and so he'll be placed on IR, I'm sure, at some point. Sorry for Juju. I'm appreciative of him, the spirit that he brings, the effort that he brings, the quality of his play. But that's what makes football the ultimate team game. We'll be calling on a number of people to bridge the gap in the short and the long term in terms of bringing what he provides.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about the injury to Juju Smith-Schuster, and it's a big loss, Missy, not just in the pass game, but you know what he means to the run game. He's one of the best blockers in the NFL, and that component is sometimes underappreciated, but I know that Coach Tomlin and the coaching staff really does appreciate it.
Yeah, he's physical. He's not afraid of contact, and it's a very unfortunate part of the game, but we saw Deontay Johnson continue to step up in that game. Also, Chase Claypool had 5 catches for 130 yards. That's a career best for him, including that 59-yarder. So it will be another opportunity, the growth, as we talked about earlier in the show, for other guys to do so as well.
Yeah, Cody White's a guy that he specifically mentioned, get more opportunities. He had a drop last week, but he's been good in the run game as well in terms of blocking when called upon, and sometimes you need opportunities. Example is Al Woods, the guy that he brought up about Seattle. He was here. Sometimes you just are a victim of a numbers game that goes on in the league. He got an opportunity, and now he's one of the anchors of their defensive line. So opportunity is a big thing for all teams.
Yeah, and Ray McLeod also somebody that Coach Tomlin brought up, somebody who was a niche guy mainly as a returner, and we've seen him more and more involved, especially in Matt Canada's offense. But we'll have to see, and even, Najee's a guy that they can also, use in the passing game as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Sunday.
And this is one of the things about James Washington. He may have felt at the beginning of the season, I'm not going to get my opportunities. If he did, injuries happen, and all of a sudden now his performance will be important to this team as well. And he's shown when in there he can make a difference down the field.
Yeah, and he's dealing with that groin injury. Coach said him and a number of other guys are going to have to, see how they do in practice. But hopefully, being able to miss that game and getting some time off will be good, and he'll be ready to go for the Seattle Seahawks.
We saw a run game that was very healthy, and Najee Harris went over 100 yards for the very first time behind an offensive line that I thought had its best game. And when you see a guy like that take advantage of the line, and it was cohesive offensive line and a commitment to the offensive line, I think that was a big part of their success.
And I think it was just eliminating some of the penalties, the mistakes, the mental errors. And yes, there were still a few, and as Coach said, those are unexcusable, especially when you're playing in front of your home crowd. But it was not to the extent that we saw in the previous 3 games, the previous 3 losses, especially that Green Bay game. It just felt like they were taking 1 step forward and then 2 steps back. So it is good, and